The main rooms are for real family, my mother-in-law Diane announced, blocking the hallway to the bedrooms with her arms crossed. Your daughter can sleep in the staff cottage out back. There's a cot. My 14-year-old granddaughter Peyton's face crumpled with hurt and confusion, while Diane's biological grandchildren smirked from the doorway of the master suite. What Diane didn't know, what nobody in my husband's family had ever bothered to discover, was that I had purchased this $3.2 million beach house 6 months ago as a 50th birthday gift for my husband, and every person standing in it was there at my invitation. The Whitmore family reunion happened every August at the Outer Banks property that had been in David's family for 3 generations. Except it hadn't been in the family for 2 years. Not since David's father had secretly sold it to cover gambling debts, a fact he'd concealed until the new owners started renovation and the family discovered the truth. The Whitmores had been devastated. Diane had cried for weeks. David's sister Pamela had blamed their father until he passed away 6 months later from a heart attack. The beach house represented their childhood, their heritage, their identity as a prominent coastal family. When I learned it was back on the market last year, the new owners had divorced and needed a quick sale, I made a decision. I would buy it anonymously through an LLC, restore it completely, and gift it to David for his 50th birthday. A surprise. A legacy reclaimed. What I hadn't anticipated was Diane taking credit for convincing the new owners to sell back to the family, or the way she'd immediately reasserted her role as matriarch of a house she didn't own. Mom, that's not necessary, my daughter Vivian said, her voice tight. Peyton can share a room with me. The rooms are already assigned. Your half-sister's children have the twin suite. Pamela's boys have the bunk room. You and your husband have the small room by the stairs. The cottage is perfectly adequate for a teenager. Half-sister. The word dripped from Diane's lips like poison. Vivian was my daughter from my first marriage, technically David's stepdaughter, though he'd raised her since she was 4 years old. To Diane, that distinction had always mattered more than 23 years of love. The cottage doesn't have air conditioning, Vivian protested. It's August. It'll be 90 degrees. Then she'll learn to appreciate what she has. Peyton's eyes were filling with tears. She was a sensitive kid, bookish and quiet, nothing like her boisterous cousins who'd already claimed the best beach toys and the kayaks and the prime spots on the deck. I'd watched Diane marginalize Vivian for 2 decades. I'd bitten my tongue at Christmas dinners and birthday parties and family vacations. I'd let it slide when Diane forgot to include Vivian in family photos or gave her children's birthday cards with noticeably smaller checks than the biological grandchildren received. But this was different. This was my granddaughter being sent to sleep in a servant's quarters because her grandmother was cruel and her bloodline wasn't pure enough. Diane, I said calmly, may I speak with you privately? Whatever you need to say, you can say in front of everyone. All right. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila folder. I've been waiting for the right moment to share this. David's 50th birthday seemed appropriate, but I think now works just as well. I handed David the folder. He opened it, confused. What is this, Caroline? The deed to this house. It's in my name. I purchased it 6 months ago when it came back on the market. I've spent $400,000 on renovations, restoring everything to the way your father had it. It was supposed to be your birthday gift. The room went silent. David stared at the documents. His hands began to shake. You bought the beach house. I bought the beach house. Every piece of furniture, every fixture, every shell in the decorative bowls. All restored or replaced to match your childhood memories. I did it because I know how much this place means to you. Caroline, his voice cracked. How could you afford? I've been running my investment firm for 18 years. You know I've done well. You just never asked how well. I paused. My net worth is approximately $12 million. I kept it separate from our joint finances because I wanted to maintain independence, and frankly, because I knew your mother would find a way to make it about herself. Diane's face had gone from smug to pale to something approaching purple. That's impossible. You're a financial advisor. You work from a home office. I manage portfolios for high-net-worth clients. I'm very good at it. I turned back to David. I'm sorry to reveal it this way. I wanted it to be special, but I'm not going to stand here and watch your mother banish our granddaughter to a shed. David set down the folder and looked at his mother. Mom, did you really tell Peyton she had to sleep in the staff cottage? It's not a shed, it's a perfectly nice. Did you? The main house rooms are limited. Priorities had to be set. Priorities. David's voice had an edge I rarely heard. My daughter's child isn't a priority? She's not your daughter. She's Caroline's daughter. Vivian has never been. Vivian is my daughter in every way that matters. I've been her father since she was 4 years old. I taught her to ride a bike. I walked her down the aisle. I held Peyton the day she was born. He stepped toward Diane. And you've spent 23 years treating her like an inconvenience. I let it happen because I didn't want conflict. That ends today. Pamela stepped forward, her husband trailing behind her. David, calm down. Mom's just trying to organize. Mom's trying to establish a hierarchy where her biological grandchildren matter more than others. In a house she doesn't own. A house she's been pretending she saved when she did nothing. I made calls. Diane protested. I reached out to the owners. You left one voicemail. I've seen the records. I opened another document. The sale was conducted entirely between my attorney and the previous owners. Your name never appeared in any correspondence. Diane's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Peyton had retreated to her mother's side, still crying quietly. Vivian had her arm around her daughter, her expression a mixture of vindication and hurt that had been building for 2 decades. Here's what's going to happen, I said, keeping my voice even. Peyton will take the ocean view room on the 2nd floor. It has its own bathroom and a balcony. I had it specifically prepared for her. You can't just, Diane started. I can. It's my house. I turned to face her fully. Diane, you've been given a choice in every interaction we've had for 23 years. You've consistently chosen cruelty. You've excluded Vivian from family photos. You've given her children smaller gifts. You've made comments about real grandchildren versus step-grandchildren. You've done it in small ways that allowed everyone to pretend it wasn't happening. I never. You just called Vivian my half-sister's daughter and tried to make Peyton sleep in a building without air conditioning because she doesn't share your DNA. In front of the entire family. You've made your position perfectly clear. I looked around the room. Pamela looked uncomfortable. Her husband was studying his shoes. David's brother Marcus, who'd arrived just in time to witness the confrontation, had frozen in the doorway with his luggage. I'm not going to ban you from this house. David loves you despite everything. But there are going to be rules. Rules. Diane's voice was incredulous. You can't give me rules in my family's home. It's not your family's home. It's my home, which I am generously sharing with your family. And if you want to continue being welcome here, you'll treat every member of this family, including Vivian and her children, with equal respect. Or what? Or you can leave. Right now. There are hotels in Nag's Head. The silence stretched. I could see Diane calculating. Her pride versus her attachment to the house. Her need for control versus her fear of losing access to the beach property that defined her social identity. David, she said finally, appealing to her son. Are you going to let her speak to me this way? David looked at his mother for a long moment. Then he looked at Vivian, who'd spent 2 decades being treated as less than. At Peyton, whose face was still streaked with tears. At me, his wife of 23 years who'd quietly built a fortune while raising his daughter and never once demanded recognition. Caroline is speaking for both of us, he said. I should have said these things years ago. I was too much of a coward. But she's right. About all of it. Marcus? Diane turned to her other son. Pamela? Neither would meet her eyes. Fine. Diane's voice was ice. If that's how this family treats its matriarch, then I'll take the cottage. Apparently, that's my place now. Diane, I started. No. You've made yourself clear. I'm not wanted. She grabbed her purse and swept toward the back door. Enjoy your house, Caroline. I hope it makes you happy. The door slammed behind her. The rest of the afternoon was awkward, as family recalibrations tend to be. Pamela went to check on her mother, returning an hour later with the news that Diane wanted to be left alone. Marcus helped redistribute the rooms according to my original plan. Peyton, after washing her face and catching her breath, claimed the ocean view room with something approaching wonder. Grandma Caroline, she said as I helped her unpack. Did you really buy this whole house? I really did. Because you're rich? Because your grandfather loves this place, and I love him, and I wanted to give him something meaningful. But you let great-grandma Diane be mean to Mom all those years. And you didn't say anything. The observation hit harder than any of Diane's insults. You're right. I didn't say enough. I should have. Why didn't you? I sat down on the edge of her bed, considering the question seriously. She deserved a serious answer. Because I was afraid of making things worse. Because I thought if I was patient, Diane would eventually accept your mother. Because I didn't want to put David in the middle. I paused. Those were excuses. The truth is, I avoided conflict because it was easier for me. And your mother paid the price. She cried a lot when I was little. After family holidays. I know. Is she going to be okay now? I think so. I think today was a beginning. Peyton considered this. Great-grandma Diane is really mean. She's hurt and she's scared, and she doesn't know how to handle it except by hurting other people. That doesn't excuse her behavior, but it explains it. Are you going to let her come back? That's up to her. She's welcome if she can treat everyone with respect. But that's a choice she has to make. Peyton nodded slowly. I like this room. I can see the ocean. I picked it specifically for you. Because I'm part of the family? Because you've always been part of the family. We just had to remind some people. That evening, David found me on the deck, watching the sunset paint the water gold and pink. You could have told me, he said, settling into the chair beside me. About the money. About the house. Would it have changed anything? I don't know. Maybe. I might have felt. Threatened? Inadequate? He winced. You know me too well. I kept it separate because I needed something that was mine. After my first marriage ended so badly, after starting over with nothing, I needed to know I could take care of myself. That I wasn't dependent on anyone. You were never dependent on me. You built a life. You raised Vivian. You were always the strongest person I knew. I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was constantly proving myself to your family. Like no matter what I did, I'd never be good enough for them. You were always good enough. They were the ones who were lacking. I know that now. I reached for his hand. I should have stood up to Diane years ago. I told myself I was keeping the peace, but really, I was just avoiding confrontation. Vivian suffered for it. We both let her down. Yes, we did. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the waves. $12 million? David finally said. Give or take. And you've just been quietly accumulating wealth this whole time? Smart investments. Compound interest. A few lucky breaks. I shrugged. I'm good at what I do. Apparently. He shook his head in wonder. My wife is a multimillionaire, and I had no idea. Does it bother you? It probably should. My ego wants to feel weird about it. He squeezed my hand. But mostly I'm just incredibly proud of you. And grateful. This house, what you did, it means everything. I know what this place represents to you. I wanted to give it back. You gave me more than a house. You gave me a wake-up call. I've been so afraid of losing my mother's approval that I let her hurt the people I love most. Patterns are hard to break. I'm going to do better. Starting now. Diane emerged from the cottage the next morning. She looked older somehow, diminished. She'd clearly spent the night confronting some difficult truths. Or at least, confronting the reality that her power in this family had evaporated. She approached me on the deck where I was drinking coffee. I owe you an apology. You owe several people apologies. I know. She sat down heavily. I've been terrible to Vivian. To Peyton. To you. I told myself I was protecting the family bloodline, but really, I was just scared. Scared of change. Scared of being replaced. Nobody was trying to replace you. I know that now. She looked out at the ocean. I've spent so many years being the matriarch of this house. When we lost it, I lost my identity. When you bought it back, I should have been grateful. Instead, I tried to reassert control I didn't have. You did. I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I studied her face, the lines of age, the remnants of pride struggling against genuine remorse. Apologies are a start, but actions matter more than words. Vivian and Peyton deserve better. I know. I'm going to try. Then you're welcome to stay. In a proper bedroom. I paused. But Diane, if you ever make my granddaughter feel like she doesn't belong again, we're done. Permanently. I understand. The rest of the week wasn't perfect. Diane was awkward around Vivian, overcorrecting with forced compliments and uncomfortable silences. But she was trying. And Peyton, resilient as children often are, began to cautiously accept her great-grandmother's tentative overtures. On the last night, David stood on the deck and raised a glass. To my wife, who bought back our family home without ever asking for credit, who stood up for our daughter when I was too cowardly to do it, who built an empire while making us all feel like we were the successful ones. His voice broke slightly. I don't deserve you, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to. Peyton raised her juice glass. To Grandma Caroline, the coolest rich person I know. Everyone laughed. Even Diane managed a small smile. I looked around at my family, complicated, imperfect, finally beginning to heal, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The beach house had been in the Whitmore family for 3 generations. Now it belonged to me. But what really mattered was that everyone standing inside it finally belonged to each other. And that was worth more than any deed.